There's a text we get almost every week right now, usually late at night, and it's always some version of the same question. Are we crazy for buying out at Avenir? And honestly, it's a fair question because the people moving into Avenir this year aren't buying a finished neighborhood, they're buying a future, they're buying into a vision, and whether that sounds exciting or whether it makes you a little uncomfortable probably tells you a lot about whether this place is right for you. This is the front door to the biggest community ever approved in Palm Beach Gardens, more than 4,700 acres, bigger than the entire town of Palm Beach, and a lot of what's behind me still doesn't exist yet. There are model homes, finished streets, 2 clubhouses, and a brand new town center with places like Publix, Walgreens, restaurants, fitness studios, and everyday conveniences already open. Just across the street, Coconut Crossing is beginning to take shape as well. Aldi and Mint Eco Car Wash are already there, while future businesses are also expected to include Starbucks, Fifth Third Bank, 7-Eleven, Wendy's, and several other shops and restaurants. There's also dirt, construction, and entire sections that are still just lines on a site plan because the families moving here today aren't buying the finished version of Avenir, they're buying the early chapters. And depending on who you are, that either sounds like the opportunity of a lifetime or a complete nightmare. So here's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna give you the drone shot luxury voiceover version of Avenir. You could find that anywhere. Instead, we're gonna walk you through what this place actually is, who it's actually right for, and whether buying out here today is a genius move or just a really expensive guess. Because the truth is, the people moving into Avenir right now aren't buying the finished version, they're buying the middle of the story. Some people love that. They love the idea of getting in early and watching a place grow around them. Other people drive through here, they see construction, they see all the empty land, and immediately they just know it's not for them. And honestly, both reactions are completely fair because whether the idea of being early excites you or it stresses you out tells you almost everything you need to know about whether Avenir fits the way you want to live. If we haven't met yet, I'm Jonathan with Live South Florida. Over the last 20 years, our team has helped well over 1,000 families buy and sell homes across South Florida. And right here in Palm Beach Gardens, we've helped a number of families move into this exact community. So this isn't a video built off of a brochure. Quick thing before we get going, this is actually the 4th video in our Palm Beach Garden series. We've already covered what it's like to live here, the golf communities, and the best neighborhoods for families who don't want their whole life built around golf. So if you're trying to decide not just whether Avenir is right for you, but whether Palm Beach Gardens itself is right for you, those videos will help fill in the bigger picture. And one more thing, everybody talks about the golf out here, but there's something happening inside Avenir right now that we think matters even more than the golf course. It showed up not that long ago, and we'll get into it. Let me start with something you don't really understand until you drive out here for the very first time: space. Because Avenir sits on what used to be an old cattle ranch, and at more than 4,700 acres, this isn't just another neighborhood, it's an entirely new piece of Palm Beach Gardens. And when you drive through here, you feel that almost immediately. The roads are wider, the lots are bigger, the sky feels bigger. And after 2 decades of communities across South Florida getting denser and tighter, Avenir almost feels like it's pushing in the opposite direction. But here's the part that surprises most people. Roughly half of all that land isn't being built on at all. More than 2,400 acres will stay protected: pine flatwoods, marshland, lakes, and miles of trails like the one I'm standing on right now. And I think that's the real emotional pull of Avenir, especially if you're moving from somewhere colder, busier, and a little more crowded. For a lot of families, this isn't really about the clubhouse or even the house itself. It's about finally feeling like they have room to breathe. For most people, that's the whole reason they move. It's a reset. Now, let me put you on the map for a second. You're about 10 miles west of the Gardens Mall and the heart of Palm Beach Gardens. The Turnpike is your fastest route north and south, with I-95 a few minutes beyond that. Juno Beach and Singer Island are about 30 minutes away, and Trump International Airport is right around the same. So no, you're not isolated, but you are west. And that word matters more than people realize. There's actually a phrase we hear from people who live out here, and I think it captures Avenir perfectly. They say they go east for life and west for home. The restaurants, the nightlife, and the beach are still back towards the coast, at least for now, but the house, the quiet, the yard, and the open sky, that's out here. And whether that trade sounds amazing or sounds like a hassle, it's one of the fastest ways to figure out whether Avenir fits the way that you want to live. Here's where almost every video about Avenir gets it wrong. People talk about it like it's one neighborhood, but it isn't. Behind that entrance sign are more than a dozen different communities, and some of them don't even feel like they're part of the same development. And that's the biggest mistake buyers make out here. They think they're deciding whether or not they want to live in Avenir. They're not. They're deciding which version of Avenir fits the way they actually want to live. So I'm not going to read you a builder list. Instead, let's walk through the different lives people are creating out here and see which one sounds the most like you. Let's start with the easiest way into Avenir, and that's Avondale by DeVosta. This is currently the lowest price point in the entire community, with homes starting in the 700s. It's not the flashiest section out here, and the homes are a little smaller than what you'll find at the top end of Avenir, but you're still getting the Palm Beach Gardens address, the amenities, and everything that comes with the Avenir master plan. And for a lot of people, that's exactly what they're looking for. They just want in. Now, if what you're looking for is energy, amenities, and families everywhere, that's Apex by GL Homes. This is really the flagship lifestyle section of Avenir. Big homes, resort-style amenities, kids everywhere, and a social calendar that's practically built for you the day you move in. And here's an interesting comparison. If you've looked at communities like Lotus down in Boca, Apex feels a lot like Palm Beach Gardens' answer to that, except you can often get similar space and amenities for significantly less money. This is for the family that wants the pool deck, the pickleball courts, and neighbors who are the exact same stage of life. Now, if that sounds a little too busy, Coral Isles is almost the complete opposite. Built by Kenco, this is where Avenir starts to feel quieter, more private, and a lot more estate-like. The homes are larger, there are fewer neighbors, and people tend to care a little more about space and privacy than having a packed social calendar. Honestly, this is usually where buyers end up when they thought they wanted all the amenities and then realize what they actually wanted was peace and quiet. Then there's Solana Bay by Akel, and if your taste leans a little more modern, this is probably where your eyes are gonna go. It's a smaller community wrapped around one of the biggest lakes in Avenir, and it has a much more contemporary feel than some of the traditional Florida-style neighborhoods nearby. We recently helped a family from New York move into this exact section, and they love the cleaner lines and the water views. And if you like that same style but want even more choices, Watermark and La Terre are worth looking out as well. These neighborhoods tend to attract people who care more about architecture and outdoor living than country club tradition. And if you're 55 and older, you actually have two completely different experiences out here. There's Regency by Toll Brothers, which is the larger active adult community with single-story homes, resort amenities, pickleball, tennis, and a full social calendar. And then there's Esprit by Coulter, which feels a little newer and gives buyers more flexibility in design. The important thing to understand is that these neighborhoods have their own social world. This isn't retirement living in the old sense of the word. It's more like a resort community where everybody happens to be in the same stage of life. And then there's the side of Avenir that attracts a very specific kind of buyer, the people who want to be first. WL Homes is building 3 communities out here: Stonegate, Lake Ridge, and Longview. Stonegate is the furthest along. Lake Ridge is likely going to be the value play, and Longview will eventually become one of the estate sections of Avenir. Right now, some of these areas are still mostly dirt, and that's either exciting or a deal breaker, depending on your personality. Then you have Orchid Isles, which is one of the more interesting sections because several different builders all purchase lots behind the same gates. So instead of choosing one builder, buyers actually have real choices within a single neighborhood. And nearby, you've got Essex, right by the future town center. Although there's still discussion around exactly what that project will become, this side of Avenir tends to attract buyers who like the idea of getting in early while the story is still written. Quick word on the clubhouses, because this is where people get confused. There are actually 2 major amenity centers on opposite sides of Avenir. This behind me is Blue Heron. On the east side, you've got the resort pool, fitness center, sports courts, event space, and plenty of places for families to gather. And the biggest thing I want you to understand is this: these aren't token amenities. They're real part of everyday life out here. Then over on the west side, you've got the Great Egret Club. This is the larger clubhouse built by GL Homes, and from everything that we've been told, it serves many of the western neighborhoods, not just one specific community. It's bigger, more sports focused, and honestly, it feels like a step up in scale. Between these two clubhouses, the amenity package in Avenir is one of the strongest that you will find anywhere in Palm Beach Gardens. One thing we've noticed after showing all of these different sections, people almost never end up where they thought they would. The couple that's convinced they want the biggest clubhouse and the busiest pool deck walks through Coral Isles and suddenly realizes what they really wanted was privacy. And the buyer who swore they wanted something quiet and tucked away stands at Apex on a Saturday afternoon and realizes they've been missing community more than they thought. Neither person is right, neither person is wrong. They're just looking for different lives, and that's really the whole story of Avenir. All right, forget the golf for a second, because the thing that actually determines whether people are still happy out here 5 or 10 years from now has nothing to do with the signature golf course or clubhouse. It has to do with everyday life. Because as beautiful as Avenir is, the question every buyer is really asking is pretty simple. Can I actually live out here? Can I grab groceries without driving 20 minutes? Can I get my kids to school? Can I see a doctor? Can I build a normal life out here without constantly feeling like I'm too far from everything? And over the last year, Avenir has started to answer those questions. This may sound funny if you've never lived in a master plan community, but the Publix opening out here was a much bigger deal than most people realize, because before this, almost everything meant getting back in the car and heading east. Now you've got Publix, Walgreens, restaurants, coffee shops, bagels, and more retail continuing to open up around the town center. For the first time, daily life actually starts inside Avenir, and that changes the experience of living out here in a big way. And this is the one that we think matters the most over the long run. Behind me is where Jupiter Medical Center and UF Health are building a brand new medical campus that they're calling the Health Park. There will be 24-hour emergency room, inpatient beds, operating rooms, and specialists right here in Avenir. If you're moving from out of state, especially if you're in your 50s, 60s, or beyond, that changes the equation, because one of the biggest concerns that people have about moving this far west is always the same. What happens if something goes wrong? For a lot of buyers, this is the answer. Honestly, we think the hospital may end up being one of the biggest long-term drivers of Avenir's growth. Not the golf course, not the clubhouse. This. And then there's the schools, which have quietly become one of Avenir's strongest selling points. Right now, most of Avenir is zoned for Pierce Hammock Elementary, Osceola Creek Middle School, and Palm Beach Gardens High School. There's also a tuition-free public charter school that opened right inside the community in 2025. One thing to keep in mind though, as Avenir grows, school boundaries can change. The school your home feeds into today may not be the same one 5 years from now. So, before you fall in love with a house, always confirm the exact zoning. And then there's the preserve, because one of the easiest things to overlook about Avenir is that a huge portion of the western edge is permanently protected. That means quiet trails, open skies, and views that aren't suddenly going to become another subdivision 10 years from now. And for buyers moving from somewhere crowded, that's a luxury that doesn't always show up in the brochure. And just so you know, this is where the conversation usually shifts when we're helping people move here. At first, everyone wants to talk about the floor plans and the clubhouses. Then eventually the questions become, which section makes the most sense for us? How much are the fees? How close are the schools? Could we actually see ourselves living here every day? Because at some point, every move stops being about the house and starts being about the life that comes with it. Now, as much as we like Avenir, we'd be doing you a disservice if we only showed you the good parts, because no community is perfect, and if you're thinking about moving out here, you deserve to understand not just what's great about Avenir, but what you're actually signing up for. None of these are deal breakers, but you should walk in with your eyes open. Number one by a mile is this construction. No matter when you move in, something nearby is probably still being built. The best advice we've heard from people who already live here is simple. Pick your section carefully and assume you'll have a couple of years of dust. Trucks, noise, lane closures. It gets better as your part of the community fills in, but if you're buying early, it's part of the deal. And honestly, this is the trade that you're making. You're getting the newer home, the larger lot, the future town center, and all the amenities, but you're also arriving before the story is finished. For some buyers, that's exciting. For others, it's exhausting. Then there's traffic, and this one's just geography. Right now, Northlake Boulevard is basically the main road in and out of Avenir. And as Avenir keeps growing and Westlake keeps growing south of here more and more, people are relying on the same road, they're widening it, and the developer is putting serious money into the infrastructure. But if you ask people who already live here what frustrates them the most, that morning drive east is usually near the top of the list. A couple of smaller things: resale is still being established in some of the newer sections, so there just aren't that many comparable sales yet. That cuts both ways, and insurance is a real conversation anywhere in Florida right now, even on brand new homes with impact windows farther from the coast. None of it is severe. We just want you walking into a decision like this with realistic expectations. Now, let me answer the question almost every buyer looking at Avenir eventually asks: how does this compare to Westlake or Alton? Because those are the three communities people cross-shop the most, and they're really solving three completely different problems. Westlake is the value play. It's more affordable, it's growing quickly, and retail arrives sooner, but you don't get the Palm Beach Gardens address and you don't get Palm Beach Gardens schools. That's the trade. Alton is a convenience play. You're closer to PGA Boulevard, closer to I-95, and you get a more walkable lifestyle with restaurants and shops right in the neighborhood. And here's the part a lot of people get wrong: Avenir isn't automatically more luxurious than Alton, it's more spacious. Alton wins on convenience and walkability, but Avenir wins on land, amenities, and the long-term vision. So if I had to simplify it, Westlake is value, Alton is convenience, and Avenir is space. None of them are better, they're just answers to three very different lifestyles. Everything that we've talked about so far, the homes, the clubhouses, the schools, the town center, it all has a ceiling, and that ceiling sits right behind me. It's called Panther National. Technically, it's part of Avenir, but honestly, it feels like its own world. You've got a members-only golf club designed by Jack Nicklaus and Justin Thomas, custom homes that start in the millions and climb well into 8 figures, and before a lot of people even knew what Panther National was, it was already hosting nationally televised golf events. And no, most people watching this video are never going to join. That's not really the point. Because here's why Panther National matters. Even if you never set foot inside, every major master plan community eventually develops an address inside the address, the place that becomes the name people mention when they want to describe the entire area. In Jupiter, it's the Bears Club. In Boca Raton, it's Royal Palm Yacht and Country Club. And out here, Panther National is quickly becoming that place. Most Avenir residents will never play a round of golf here, but whether people realize it or not, having that kind of club inside the community changes how buyers, builders, and even people who already live in Palm Beach Gardens think about Avenir, and you can already feel that shift happening. There's still a little skepticism from the old Palm Beach Gardens golf crowd. People are still figuring out whether Panther fits among all the legacy clubs, but when you start hearing those conversations, it usually means something important is happening. And look, not everybody watching this video plays golf. Plenty of people couldn't care less. But if golf is part of your life, Palm Beach Gardens is one of the best golf towns in America, and Panther National is only one piece of that story. We've actually put together an entire video breaking down the golf communities here in Palm Beach Gardens, so if that's your world, make sure to check that one out. And if this kind of honest, boots on the ground look at South Florida is helpful, that's really what this channel is all about. So let's bring it home. Is getting into Avenir early a genius move, or is it a guess? Here's my answer. I don't think Avenir is amazing, and I don't think it's overrated. I think it's specific, and the people who end up happiest here tend to have a lot in common. Avenir works for the buyer who wants newer construction, more space, and a Palm Beach Gardens address, and actually likes the idea of moving somewhere that's still growing. It works for families who want modern floor plans and great schools without necessarily wanting the older country club lifestyle. It works for the 55 and up buyer who wants resort-style amenities and a built-in social scene without needing a golf membership. And it works for people who can look past a few years of construction and already picture what this place is going to become. And here's one pattern we've noticed that's worth mentioning. A lot of the people we've helped move into Avenir don't have a daily commute. Some work from home, some only drive into the office once or twice a week, and I do think that's part of why Avenir works so well for them. So if you're commuting east every single morning, just be honest with yourself about that now. This far west tends to work best when your work moves with you, but Avenir doesn't fit everybody. If you want a mature neighborhood that's completely finished the day you move in, this isn't that yet. If being 20 or 30 minutes from the beach is going to bother you every weekend, be honest about that too. And if being early before resale is fully established keeps you up at night, there are more established neighborhoods in Palm Beach Gardens that might be a better fit, and that's completely okay, because being early is either genius or it's guesswork, and the difference between the two is understanding exactly what you're buying into. If you've watched this far, you do. You probably already know which sections fit your life and which ones don't. I'll leave you with this. Forget the pricing, forget the floor plans, forget the clubhouses for a second. Just ask yourself one question. What does your perfect weekend look like out here? Not the vacation version, the normal one. Maybe it's a walk along the preserve before it gets too hot. Maybe it's grabbing a coffee or a bagel at the town center and running into people that you know. Maybe it's kids riding bikes while everybody ends up at the pool around 5 o'clock. Or maybe it's just standing somewhere like this. Big sky, quiet water, nowhere you need to be. Because a house is where you sleep. A community is how you live. And if that weekend feels like you, well, then you probably already have your answer. That's Avenir for you, and if you want to keep going, this QR code on the screen will take you to our free Avenir neighborhood guide, which goes much deeper than anything that we could fit into this one video. It breaks down the different communities, the builders, the amenities, the clubhouses, and the pros and cons of each section, so you can start figuring out which part of Avenir actually fits the way that you want to live. And if you want the bigger picture beyond Avenir itself, we've also put together a complete Palm Beach Gardens city guide video along with our Palm Beach Gardens living guide, where we cover the neighborhoods, schools, restaurants, and what day-to-day life is really like here. You'll find links to all of that down in the description below. And if this video helped you at all, do me one quick favor, hit that like button and subscribe. That's what tells YouTube to put this video in front of the next family trying to figure out the same move. But the most important piece of advice I can give you is the same thing we tell every family that we work with. Reach out before you get on the plane, not after. One conversation with us can save you months of looking in the wrong neighborhoods, and it can help you figure out whether Avenir is actually the right fit for the way that you want to live. Our agents are incredibly experienced. They know Avenir, Palm Beach Gardens, and all of the surrounding areas, and our goal is always the same: to help you make the best decision for you and your family. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Jonathan. This is Live South Florida, and I'll see you in the next video.